Hi everyone, good morning. It's Tuesday morning, a little bit later than I normally do my videos, but I wanted to touch base with you guys and talk about chapters 5 and 6 just a little bit. In chapter 5, we are looking at general ethical perspectives, and this is usually something that's covered in a logic class, in critical thinking class in school. So I've had this several times where we've looked at these different theories and applied them to situations and looked at them in depth and looked at some of the background of the people who are writing these theories. So in a nutshell, this is going to be like a whole course semester in a nutshell, like 2 minutes. We're talking about two important, there's really several, but two that I really want to focus on are utilitarianism and Kant's categorical let me get it out. Kant's categorical imperative. Utilitarianism, in a nutshell, utilitarianism, you do what's best for the greater good. So when you have a decision to be made and 10% of the people might be affected one way and 90% the other way, you go with the decision that affects the 90%. Is this fair and just? Not necessarily. But that's how you look at it through utilitarianism. What is the best for the greater good? And that's the way we make a lot of decisions in government and in our personal lives and in other things. And here's an example of it. Let's say that they need to build a new interstate and they're going to tear down houses along this new interstate. But this new interstate is going to bring commerce into a city. And I can use this example because it happened in the 1960s in New Orleans. There was a beautiful street called Claiborne Avenue. And we call it a neutral ground. You guys call it a median. The neutral ground was lined with absolutely fantastic oak trees. I can remember this from my childhood. It was a 2-lane street with the median, neutral ground, beautiful oak trees. Well, they needed an interstate artery to go into the downtown area because they knew that they could not develop the downtown area without the interstate. So guess what they did? They went all with oak trees. And what was also impacted were the houses on 2, 3, 4 blocks on the other side of the interstate, because this is a raised interstate, because New Orleans is flat and below sea level. So if they left it on the ground, every time it flooded, it rained, like even yesterday, the street would flood, so the interstate would be useless. So it's a raised interstate. It's 6 lanes, and it cuts right down the center. What has happened since then? What's happened since then, that under that interstate has become a haven for homelessness, drug dealing, and other things. So they thought it was for the greater good to bring commerce in. They looked at how it would impact other people. They used eminent domain to take over that area, and that's what happened. That's an example of utilitarianism. Kant's categorical imperative, we always do what's right no matter what. And this is where it sounds good in theory, but this is where it gets a little bit iffy. Always telling the truth, because it's the right thing to do, because that's what the Bible tells us. It says, thou shalt not lie. But if you learn something or you know something about your friend, do you tell your friend or do you spare their feelings? That's how Kant's categorical imperative works. The others, we talk about justice as fairness. We try to have a just society. Is it necessarily a just society? It's the way things are operated within the justice system. Is it always fair? No. And we see that all the time with people who are sent to prison for being found guilty of committing a crime, and then years later the DNA does not match up, and we find out we have imprisoned someone for many years. There have also been people executed because the evidence and the conviction went down that way, and later on it was found that they were not guilty. And so I'm not going to advocate for or against the death penalty here, but the things happen, errors happen, and that's what we use to make our decisions. Pragmatism. It's when you test out options and use your imagination by putting yourself in the place where you should be, you immerse yourself in a situation to make the decision. Pragmatism. Where you put emotion aside and you look at it logically from all angles. And altruism is putting others first. And you could see that all the time with people who are very altruistic. The ones that come to mind to me, or one that comes to mind to me, is Mother Teresa. I think she was a wonderful, blessed woman used by God to go to India and help the poor people. And someone else who I really wasn't crazy about when she was alive. I mean, I liked her, but I wasn't crazy about her. But after I got to reading about her and going to Paris and London and seeing and thinking about her, is Princess Diana. I remember clearly the night she died and the tragedy. And if you ever get a chance to go to Paris and see the memorial to her, it's very, very touching. In fact, this is going to be a sad story. I'm going to tell you a sad story about myself. I went in 2017 with my mom, and it was her dream trip. And we took a cruise, and we ended up in Barcelona. Then we took the train to Paris. And the very last day of our trip, we were on the right bank. And we went by the memorial, and we were looking at it, and I took pictures of it. Well, unfortunately, my mom died 3.5 weeks later in her sleep. And when I look at those pictures, the very last pictures on my roll of that trip are the Princess Diana Memorial. So it's a very sad and touching thing. So it means a lot to me, that. But when you see pictures of her out in the minefield, and you think, this is a very, very wealthy woman who wore a princess crown, who millions, tens of millions of people watched her get married, and they followed her every move. But she had that streak in her where she felt she had to do something for others. And she made those things her cause. Touching the hands of children or people who had AIDS at a time in the 80s when everybody was in this AIDS paranoid. And the pictures of that, and I think it truly was from her heart. I don't think it was just a photo op. I think it was from her heart. So these are people that we look at that are famous that do that, but people do it all day, every day. So let me move into chapter 6. We are talking about ethical decision-making and behavior. And we're talking about how you decide to make a decision. And they give you several different steps that you can follow, different methods for making an ethical decision. Does one overweigh the other? No, because there's pros and cons for each one. But we also, what I want to talk about are ethical biases. We all have biases. We all have, I don't know, I got a piece of something right here. We all have something going on in our lives or in our past that bias us. We have a bias. My bias might be that I believe that, this is not an ethical dilemma, it's just an example. I might believe that American-made cars are better than foreign-made cars. And I will tell you that my brother and I argued about that a long time ago because I bought a Toyota. And he's a union man, and he's like, oh, no, you got to buy American. And I'm like, well, I'm buying this Toyota. So our ethical biases, we might think something is wrong where other people don't think it's wrong. And I don't know your religious backgrounds, but recently I've really started looking at fundamentalism. And there are a lot of biases in fundamentalism. And that's fine. That's the way they believe. I have a lot of biases my way. One of my biases right now is I think women should be deacons in the church, and my church doesn't agree. So we make ethical decisions through the lens of our history, of what we've experienced from our parents, what we grew up with. We all have these filters that we wear, and everybody's filters are different. So the way I see something and the way you see something are entirely different. We can observe the same event and come out with two different outcomes. So that's what we're talking about in chapter 6. Now, switching over to where we are in class. I returned your work for chapters 1 and 2, week 1, and I graded your papers for week 2, and I returned them to you last night. They were great. Awesomely written papers. I enjoyed learning about you guys. I learned about you through your papers, and learning how you respect your coaches as leaders, and I appreciate that. So, great job. This unit, you also have a case study to do, and you can pick any one of them from chapters 1 through 6, and there's some really interesting ones there that might mean a lot to you. They are real world situations, and I learned a lot by reading them. Like, I didn't know that. So it's a good thing to learn, good thing to know. It's due by Sunday night. You guys have been really good about turning your work in on time, and I appreciate that. And we are going to move forward. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. I can get on the phone with you. We can do a Zoom meeting just like I'm doing with you right now, a one-person meeting. Whatever we need to do to explain anything. All right, be prepared. Be prepared. Next week, all you have is your midterm. And when I talked about Kant's categorical imperative and utilitarianism, I hope you listen closely because it's going to be on your exam. And it's going to be multiple choice, a few true, false, and a couple of short answer questions. So for, is it Katie? Katie, are you the one that's distance learning student? If you are, I believe you are, make sure today, get your appointment with ProctorU, because if you wait within 72 hours, you're going to have to pay $12. I'm trying to save you some money. So make your appointment like today with them to take your midterm exam. With that, if you have any questions again, let me know. I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope it's not raining like it rained here every day. Thank God the sun's shining, so I think I'm going to go swimming. It's been wonderful so far. I really enjoy teaching this class. I enjoy working with you guys, and I want you to take care, and I'll be praying for you. So y'all do well. Bye.